just the acquisition of the mill, like that was a action-packed 2024 compared to most companies out there.
We were able to sell some of the non-core assets to a private Australian group, and we redeployed those funds to then acquire the Caribou process plant for $6 million.
Hi, everybody. It's Jean-Michel at Inversio, and today we're pretty lucky. We're going to be talking with Simon Quick, CEO of Canadian Copper. And this is actually, I've talked many times with Simon, but this is actually the first time we're going to talk on camera. As you know, we went to see Canadian Copper's properties. We went to see the Caribou Mill, like lots of exciting stuff. And there's also an aspect that I really like is that Simon is probably the youngest CEO that I get to talk to. He's actually probably younger than me. So
definitely not the youngest, but not the oldest. We'll shoot for the middle, I think, in that sense.
So you give us a little bit of background because you've got for your career, and I don't want to just dwell too much about your age, but you've done a lot in your career, and where you're at and how you're running Canadian Copper and your vision, I think is a testament of somebody that's been in the action in the mining world, and has grown properly. So, if you could just give us a little bit of lowdown your background.
Yeah, certainly not have grown properly, but I think on a risk-adjusted basis, mining represents really a unique investment opportunity, particularly in the younger phases of your career. And I think if you can match some project experience, understanding what is permittable, what can be built, what are the maybe significant pitfalls you can avoid either in the design or the execution or the construction phases is good. But now trying to pair it with the capital markets piece, and that do you have a project that you can finance, and what is really a financeable project? So in designing Canadian Copper, what we tried to do is factor in jurisdiction, CapEx or capital intensity, something that's not 10 through 20 times the size of our market cap. And can you permit something in a reasonable time frame with maybe a little less execution risk in what we're trying to design? So that's really the philosophy of the business we're working on.
And all that philosophy brought you to what I think is one of the most interesting provinces that's kind of starting to get a little bit above the radar because it's been flying a lot under the radar, but New Brunswick, I've been there with Puma Exploration, you guys, another project. And it's just I would say it's one of the friendlier mining jurisdictions in Canada that we are just starting to hear. So I just have a little bit of your thoughts on New Brunswick and what brought you to New Brunswick.
Yeah, so historically, it's a significant bellwether producer for major base metal deposits, and it really formed that reputation starting in the mid-50s up until 2000, and that's when Brunswick 12 went into reclamation. So depending on what source you look at, that mine was the second or third largest underground base metal mine to ever be developed, and it's in New Brunswick, so a place that people don't think of in terms of being really pivotal in the mining space, but they are historically. In terms of recent events, Kinross just signed a JV agreement with Puma Exploration, who we know well. So they're really the first senior gold producer to enter the camp. And I think that's a benefit to them, and they're really a first mover advantage there. But if you contrast New Brunswick with other parts of Canada from a provincial level, there's area to be staked. The roads are excellent in terms of infrastructure and access. Permitting is pretty clear, and they've got specific requirements you need to be able to effectively explore, but the time horizons are not really, really long. So I think that puts it unique in terms of British Columbia, maybe in Quebec and Ontario and aspects like that. And most importantly, it's a small province. There's less than 1 million people, and you can really begin to negotiate and I would say build that rapport with the government quicker than if it were a 10, 15 million population province. So I think all those things included allows you to really work quicker than I think a lot of places, both in terms of Canada and elsewhere.
And do you think since the people that live in New Brunswick, they've always been associated with working with natural resources, like either lumber or fishing. So that mentality of, no, let's exploit our the things that we have in our backyard. I think that also plays like it's an added bonus. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm still quite new to New Brunswick, so I'm certainly not the talking point here. But in my experience to date, last couple of years working with people there locally, I would certainly say they're open to resource development. But historically, that's, I think, a precedent they have set, both in terms of logging, oil and gas, and their base metal activities. So again, yeah, I think it's a province that is open to business, but again, you have to work properly and within the regulations.
Absolutely, and I don't think that's an issue for you guys because you're fairly by the book kind of guy in the when it comes to jurisdiction. So and like most junior mining companies out there, that's the way it's business is done these days.
Yeah, I think integrity is important, and your reputation is only as good as the last thing you achieved or had promised in. And in terms of Canadian Copper, we're very new to the camp, and we were lucky. When we went public, we were able to work under the reputation of Puma Exploration and what Marcel has put together in that camp. He has more than 15 years experience. So we've been trying to champion the good word that he has built up in the camp. But again, our model is a bit different. We're focused on really the restart of the Caribou process plant, but not utilizing that old Caribou underground ore. Our strategy is to leverage this Murray Brook deposit that we acquired 100% of. It's large. It's the largest undeveloped polymetallic deposit in New Brunswick. It's open pit, and we think it represents a 1+1=3 strategy by taking the large Murray Brook deposit that is just 10 kilometers from the Caribou plant and using that plant to process that material.
And I'll get to the Caribou because when we went there, we filmed, and it's super impressive. That I mean, like the scope of the mill itself is just blew my mind. But before we get there, since like the beginning of 2024, you made a lot of strategic moves. I know you've sold some properties. You secured the Murray Brook. Just the acquisition of the mill, like that was a action-packed 2024 compared to most companies out there. You like, and you're still under the umbrella of a junior mining company. That was must have been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, so we're a 13 million market cap company. Obviously, we think we're more valuable than that. But 2024 was really productive for us. We were able to sell some of the non-core assets to a private Australian group, which is called Raptor Resources, and we redeployed those funds to then acquire the Caribou process plant for $6 million. The final consideration for that agreement is due this July. And the idea is we saw a plant with a replacement cost of more than 200 million, and we're able to purchase this for sort of 6 cents on the dollar. And we think it made a lot of accretive sense when you pair it with a deposit that's large in need of a process plant to operate.
And the deposit in Murray Brook, how far is it? Like I think you said when we were there, it's like 10 kilometers by the crow fly.
Yeah, so there's two ways the material can be brought to the plant. If we were to decide to design the new road, it's about 12 kilometers door to door, or use the as-built Highway 180, which is a provincial highway that is 35 kilometers door to door. So we're working on an economic analysis that will be published the first half of this year that will show both the CapEx and the OpEx of both routes, and then ultimately we'll decide from there how we construct the asset.
And with the Caribou mine, the government, I would imagine, has been like in full support with you guys because it's jobs, right? It's at a certain point, we were talking about jobs.
I can't speak for the government, but I would say they've been a wonderful counterparty to deal with from the beginning of this and to the point we're at today. And I think you're right. Job creation is important for any provincial government. And ultimately, we're looking forward to closing the transaction in July, getting into permitting, and ultimately developing this asset as expeditiously as we can.
And besides for 2025, besides doing that huge chunk, which is pretty much it's not a small feat. I'm guessing there's also going to be some more exploration of the Murray Brook asset. Do you have other assets that you're going to be looking at?
So the focus of the first half will be we have a a 600 kilo sample at SGS Lake Field right now. And the idea of that metallurgical program is to simulate the first 4 years of Murray Brook material and its behavior in the constructed Caribou plant. So the idea is we're going to invest minimal capital to make sure that plant is able to be purposed for our material and produce concentrate. So that test work is ongoing, and we'll be publishing some results from that. We're hoping in February. And ultimately, that will lead to a new PEA that will show the financial payback of what we call the combined strategy. And that's taking the Murray Brook deposit and processing it at the as-built Caribou plant. So that's a big catalyst for us that we're focused on. And then after that, we'll be looking kind of regionally across the portfolio of the assets that we have for exploration targets. If you go on our presentation or website, we control end-to-end from the Caribou facility to what we call the Murray Brook West asset. So that's an 18-kilometer contiguous stretch of land, mostly unexplored, and we think represents some compelling targets for trenching and exploration and ultimately drilling as well. And the idea is we use these exploration crews to generate a longer mine life, both at the deposit at Murray Brook, but also at regional targets as well. We'd like to see Caribou restart and be a 30-year operation.
And I was about to lead in that question because that's also something that's important for people who are listening, new investors, is that now that you have that you're in the finalization of acquiring the mill, if we're going to be super legit, it's not just for your project. I would imagine, like, a mill's got to work, right? So I would imagine there might be some strategy to go cater to to other companies that need to have their product refined.
I think you're right. And one of the benefits to having an operating mill in that region, one, the infrastructure is excellent in terms of roads, being able to bring material to Caribou. But two, you may have a deposit that can't afford its own processing CapEx, but can certainly afford to mine and haul it. And then obviously they'll recoup that revenue. So we think that there's a real business case to, once Caribou is up and running, not only to process our Murray Brook deposit, but other deposits in the region that may not support their own plant, but certainly can support toll milling their ore to that facility.
Yeah, because, and for investors, that's, because that's an actual, tangible asset. It's something that that for a junior mining company is, when you have a tangible asset, well, there's all sorts of, financial operations, of course, you could do, but it's a mill. It's got to run. You can't let it just get cold because you're doing exploration. So, I could see a lot of people going like, well, this is, it's an extra, would you say it's an extra layer of protection for investors, more or less?
I think my point of view is just once you have an operating mill, it's more of a viable business case for a junior miner that can produce cash flow, and they're not simply spending money on the liability side. So to me, that's what hopefully is the target we're trying to achieve in the next couple of years, is to show that we are a viable business case. We've been able to purchase what we think is an undervalued asset, and then combining it with a large resource, it's a bit of a forced multiplier effect that will generate investor returns for the Canadian Copper shareholders.
And the mill itself, will it only do copper, or you're looking into doing potentially down the road some modification to take in other resources? Because where there's copper, there tends to be silver. Where there's copper, there tends to be gold. So I'm guessing a smart guy like you already has plans.
The PEA is going to envision 3 concentrates being produced at that mill itself. So it'll have a zinc concentrate, a lead concentrate, and a copper concentrate. The silver is likely going to be floated with the lead, and then ultimately we'll have 3 marketable concentrates when the operation is up and running. And then in terms of potential toll milling, it really depends on the ore type and the grade of how that will be structured. But for us, the objective is 3 saleable concentrates upon production.
Awesome. And you got partnered up with another company, OceanX or Ocean?
So Ocean Partners is a global offtake group.
Okay.
And we announced $1.5 million non-brokered financing in early November. And Ocean Partners took on $500,000 of that lead order at market, and then ultimately joined our board. His name is Brent Omlin, so he's also the CEO of Ocean. So he joined the company, and really, I think it's a positive sign of what we're trying to put together when you have a metals offtake group sort of see concentrate in the near future, and then are looking to get invested. So we're happy to have them aboard as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a sign that bigger players are going. They see the vision, they see where you're going. And how did the most of your shareholders and the market react to that type of news?
I think it was positive. At market financings in the junior world aren't that common. It did come with a full warrant, so there's that trade-off as well. But the idea of the warrant is we wanted to structure it such that it was the next step to support our future financing. So it was priced quite aggressively, and we think it'll be exercised, we're hoping, with the type of shareholders we have, and then we'll be able to move forward with, again, closing that transaction in July.
Awesome. And just one last question before we sign off. So yesterday was the presidential inaugurations. So do you foresee the new leadership affecting the minerals, critical minerals world in Canada? Because I know there was a little bit of allusion to he's going to change tariffs, and we have the wild man is back in the office, so you don't know what's going to happen. Do you feel like that's going to play into the junior or mining world at all?
So for us, we just try and focus on what we can control. And I think being domiciled and having your production generated in Canada has some attributes if the US dollar is going to get stronger. So obviously our costs are denominated in CAD and our revenue is in US dollar. So the exchange rate right now is pretty conducive for Canadian based operations. So we think that's a benefit. In terms of the offtake market, most of our stuff will stay in Canada. But again, we'll look to see what the new president policies are and remain as nimble as we can, like I'm sure every other company is doing.
Well, hopefully they're just trying to plan out the future, and the future right now with this new regime is going to be a little bit of a question mark, like it was in the past when he was there before. So, but it'll be entertaining at least.
See what happens.
So, before we wrap it up, we can find Canadian Copper on which exchange?
Yeah, so we trade under the Canadian Stock Exchange under the ticker CCI. And you can visit our website. There's a video that you actually produced on the homepage that gives a virtual tour of both the mill that we're trying to purchase plus the deposit that we own. And I think it'll give investors and potential investors a sort of a bird's eye view of something that you can visit online as well.
Awesome. And as per usual, I'm pretty sure that on the website, there's easy ways to access the CEO of Canadian Copper, because that's the advantage of junior mining companies is it's fairly easy to get in touch with the CEO.
Yep, my email is simon@canadiancopper.com, so email away, and my cell phone is also on the press releases, so please call or text, and I'd be happy to give individual presentations and discuss the company in person as well.
Awesome. So thanks again for taking the time to talk with us, and we look forward to what's going to happen with Canadian Copper in 2025. And thank you a lot, Simon. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
You as well. Thanks so much. It was great to be with you.
All right. Thanks.
Well, if you made it this far, you must be a real fan. So you better smash that like button, let us know what you think down below. And if you're not subscribed already, do that and turn on that little notification bell so you don't miss a single one of our videos. While you're at it, check out the last one. It was a real good one. And until next time, see ya.